going to move on to our special segment that we're doing this season.
Ooh,
spooky. We got to do another haunted story
on Christmas. We'll do it on Christmas.
A Christmas?
Because that's what we did. We did a spooky Christmas episode last year.
Was it Christmas?
Yeah. So it's a spooky Christmas episode.
All right, let's do it again.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, we're not doing a spooky Christmas episode today. We're getting back into our forbidden books of the Bible, the Enoch episodes.
Nice.
Did we come up with a better name for that?
No.
Okay. Well, this is our fourth one. Enoch
Dang,
episodes.
Girl.
Thank you.
Enoch eps.
So today we're going to go through chapters 25 through 36 of Enoch, and that'll finish up the Book of the Watchers, which is the first section of the Book of Enoch overall. So I'm going to give a little recap from last time to refresh our memories about this weird book. And then, take it away, babe.
Sounds good.
So last week we covered chapters 13 through 24. In the first two chapters, Enoch goes to the fallen watchers and they ask him to deliver a petition to God on their behalf. Enoch then falls asleep and has a visionary experience where he sees many different realms with angels as his tour guides to explore and explain what these different realms are. He sees the throne room in heaven where God gives him a message to deliver to the fallen watchers. The message is that they will not be forgiven for their treason against God and will be judged in the coming final day of judgment. God also tells Enoch about the fate of the offspring of the fallen watchers. The watchers married human women who then gave birth to giants. God says that once these giants die, their spirits will roam the earth looking for human bodies to inhabit, which was just a wild part.
Yeah.
Enoch also sees where spiritual beings who have been sinned against God are held in prison until Judgment Day. And he also sees where the souls of the dead live until the coming Judgment Day. And then we wrapped up with chapter 24, where a new angel is introduced to us, Michael. And he appears and explains to Enoch what the meaning of this wonderful tree that he is looking at is. And that's where we hop right back in.
Right. So chapter 25, Enoch asks Michael, the angel of the Lord, the angel, not the angel of the Lord. That would be Jesus. Well, sometimes in scripture.
Yeah, we should do an episode about that.
Yeah. But Enoch asks Michael, the angel, about the tree on the mountain of the Lord. So Michael describes it and tells Enoch it is a fragrant tree no mortal is permitted to touch till the great judgment. Then it shall be, quote, given to the righteous and holy. So the footnote to this chapter says, in Hebrew cosmology, the tree of life represents the rectification of the human condition and the restoration of the Edenic order on the planet Earth.
Okay, so related to the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought this is very interesting. So Enoch is on this mountain, which he says looks like the throne of God, and there's this wonderful tree. And I thought it was interesting. It said, no man is permitted to touch it until after the judgment day, which is fascinating because, and then it says that once the great judgment day has happened, this tree will be transplanted to the temple of the Lord where mankind can enjoy its fruits.
Yeah.
And this is very connected, I feel, to, first of all, we know the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God tells them, there's two trees whose fruits you can eat from, and they eat from the wrong one. They eat from the tree of knowledge instead of the tree of life. And then in the book of Revelation, near the end, Revelation 22, it says that they're in the temple of the Lord, like the New Jerusalem. The angel showed me a river of water of life flowing from the throne of God down the middle of the street of the city. And on this river was the tree of life, bearing fruit for every month. And it was for healing of the nations. So I think it's kind of cool that the book of Revelation obviously wasn't written at the time the book of Enoch was, but that the idea that this tree of life that's in the Garden of Eden is going to be moved or end up in the New Jerusalem.
Yeah. That's super
some
cool.
interesting tie-ins.
I like that.
Yeah.
So moving on to chapter 26.
Great.
Is that all you have for that
That's
chapter?
what I got.
Okay. Enoch goes to the middle of the earth, which is crazy. It just says, then I was taken to the middle of the earth or something like that. It's just like a passing note he made.
Yes. I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it says he was taken to the middle of the earth, this likely symbolizes a place on earth. Like we would say, we live in the Midwest, in the middle of the United States.
That makes way more sense.
Yes.
'Cause I
So
was
he's not
picturing,
like in the core of the earth. Yeah.
But it could mean that. And that would be dope.
That would be dope. But he says he went to the middle of the earth and he saw the holy mountain there. So it's likely tying into like Jerusalem and like Mount Zion. So
That's
that would
very
be
true.
the middle of the earth in their context.
That's very true. In my head, it's still the center of the earth. But I agree with you.
Okay, and he just burnt up.
No, it's supernatural. He was taken there in a vision. So he goes to the middle of the earth and he sees a blessed place in which there were trees. He sees a holy mountain and two more mountains to the east, one to the east and one to the west, with streams running out from them in deep ravines that didn't have trees and were formed of hard rock.
Yes. So very interesting. Just this picture of these mountains that are full of life. There's water running from them. There's trees. It's beautiful. And then separating these mountains are these like deep, dry, no trees, just rocky ravines.
And Uriel, the angel that's with him, goes on to describe those valleys a little bit in the next chapter, chapter 27. So Enoch asks Uriel what object is the blessed land for in the accursed valley. I think he does say object.
Yeah,
which
you
is
could also
interesting.
say what's the purpose.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of this place?
Yes. Thank you. Uriel says, this accursed valley is for those who are cursed forever. He describes them as the accursed, who utter with their lips against the Lord unseemly words, and of his glory speak hard things.
Yeah, I thought this was fascinating. So the angel Uriel takes over in this moment. And Uriel, if we go back to, I think, chapter 18, where it describes the roles of these angels, his role is over the place where the wicked are judged, Tartarus. And so Uriel explains to Enoch that these valleys that you see that are all dry and dead are like a holding place for those who curse God until the day of judgment. So it's kind of this juxtaposition about like the holy and the righteous people. They're on these fruitful, green, lush mountains, and then the wicked are kept in these
ravines with rocks and no trees.
And they're looking up and they're like cursing the Lord.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it continues on. It said in the last days, they will be judged in the righteous and will bless the Lord. So it's kind of these two pictures of the righteous are living in, good places and they're blessing God, and the wicked are cursing God.
Yeah.
So two different declarations out of their mouths, but two different intentions of the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on to chapter 28, Enoch goes east into the midst of a mountain range in the desert. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. He's just traveling everywhere. He sees a wilderness. He's living the dream, honestly. He's probably doing it in a van, a built-out converted van, with him and Uriel.
I'm imagining him flying along with the angels.
No, it's for sure a Sprinter van or a Ford.
Driving through the Middle East.
A Ford Transit. Oh, man. That's my dream. So he goes to the east into the midst of a mountain range in the desert. He sees a wilderness that was, quote, solitary and full of trees and plants, where water gushed forth from above and caused clouds and dew to ascend on every side.
Yeah, so this is kind of another picture of there being, just like these mountains that are covered in trees, that there is like life and, springing forth in the midst of the deserts.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Not much more to say about this chapter,
it's a
really.
1 verse or 2 verse chapter.
Yeah. So in chapter 29, he's taken to another place in the desert.
Lots of desert travel.
Yeah.
I don't think a Sprinter van could drive through the desert.
You haven't seen
Through
the
the sand
2025 model, baby. Shoo! So he travels through the desert to the east of the mountain range he was in and sees aromatic trees exhaling the fragrance of frankincense and myrrh. He says the trees were similar to an almond tree.
Yes, it's quite interesting, this chapter, because he sees trees, frankincense and myrrh,
Sea tree.
an almond tree. And in the next chapter, 30, he goes further to a valley that has trees that are cinnamon and mastic.
Yeah.
And then chapter 31, he goes further into the desert and sees groves of trees which produce
Sorara and galbanum.
and statica,
Yeah.
which I cannot pronounce. But all of these are herbs or spices that were used in temple worship for the Jewish people. They would burn these incenses in the temple.
No way.
Yeah, so you can go back into, I think it's Numbers. Yeah, where God tells Moses what the different combination of spices and herbs to burn are. So that's frankincense, which is interesting, related to Jesus was anointed with, or the wise men brought him frankincense and myrrh. And then those spices were also burned in the temple. So just kind of a picture of God providing, even in the desert, ways for his people to worship them.
Yeah.
As an interpretation.
I can't tell you how useless this segment would be if you weren't here. Honestly. It would just be me summarizing a chapter and being like, moving on. Without your in-depth research. I like reading the book. I enjoy the concepts and stuff, but you're very much... You're way more of a Berean than I am.
Oh,
and so
thank you.
it really helps to have you here to explain this stuff to the audience and to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So to sum up these 3 chapters is he's encountering these places in the desert where there's trees that are producing spices and fragrant things that could be used for worship in the temple to God.
Yeah. So that's through chapter 30, correct?
Yeah. 31 actually.
31. So,
and 32. We get into cinnamon and pepper and nard. So
well, in 32, he travels east again and comes to the Garden of Righteousness, which is
very
interesting.
Yeah.
Which could be interpreted as Eden. Mm-hmm. So there he sees, quote, the tree of wisdom, whereof they eat in no great wisdom. Raphael, another angel who's with him, confirms that this is indeed the tree of wisdom from which Adam and Eve ate and, quote, learnt wisdom and their eyes were open. So he's taken to the Garden of Eden and shown the tree of wisdom where Adam and Eve ate.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's pretty interesting. So like previous chapters, he sees the tree of life. And then now he's come to the tree of wisdom, also known as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And yeah, it says that if you eat the fruit of this tree of knowledge, you'll get great wisdom. And Enoch's obviously very impressed by it. He says, how beautiful is this tree and how attractive it looks. Mm-hmm. Never said that about a tree.
How
but
supple its branches.
Yes.
He doesn't say that, but he thought it.
Definitely. So this is obviously, this garden of righteousness is a obvious connection to the book of Genesis. And as I mentioned, the 2 trees in the Garden of Eden, which I kind of just enjoyed reading a little bit about, because in the previous chapter, it talks about this tree of life being, nobody can touch it until after the judgment. And then it will be transplanted into like eternity where people will live forever. And then the tree of knowledge does not have any stipulations related to that.
Yeah.
In fact, Raphael shows up, and he's the angel who's over the spirits of men. He explains that this is the tree of wisdom, which your father, who is old in years, and your aged mother, who were before you. So this isn't saying his actual father and mother, but more so like his ancestors. Mm-hmm. They ate of it and they learned wisdom, and their eyes were opened. And then they knew they were naked and they were driven out of the garden.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much just a retelling of Adam and Eve eating of the tree of knowledge and then being kicked out of the Garden of Eden for disobeying God.
Yeah. Which is pretty insane to have this in another book other than Genesis. Mm-hmm. Like this is another kind of confirming, I don't know what else to say, but like proof that this actually happened and that Enoch has some kind of foundation in biblical truth. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's pretty wild to think about.
Yeah. Well, I was interested the other day to look up, like, were Adam and Enoch alive at the same time? And they actually were.
They were. Yeah. You told me.
So even though
insane.
he's like his 4th, great grandchild, because Adam lived to be 900 and something, Enoch was like 70 when his great grandfather Adam died. And so if, he's having this visionary experience it would make sense. It says, your father who's old in years and your aged mother, that Adam and Eve were still around.
They're still alive.
And he knew the stories. And he's like, this is the tree that they ate from.
That's so crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So crazy to think about. He could be 70 and Adam was still alive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of cool.
It is.
So, yeah, I just really liked that passage, just talking about like just a quick recap of the book of the first couple chapters of Genesis, actually.
Yeah. So chapters 33 through 36, there's a lot of talk about portals here. A lot of talk about portals, babe. I need you to explain this to me.
Okay, so it mentions a bunch of portals in the heavens, and I looked into what does portal mean, because this book was translated from Ethiopian Ge'ez into, I think, Greek, and then they found portions of it that were written in Aramaic in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so translators have translated the word to be portal, but it would be more accurately described like an open gate or an open door. So pretty much just an opening. Like a gate would be a portal. Like a gate to a city, it might not have doors, but just kind of an archway.
Okay.
So just the picture of an opening is probably a better way to explain it than portals.
Okay.
Unless you want to get real weird with it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Enoch is then taken to the ends of the earth, and he's taken to like the north, south, east, and west, like the furthest points of the earth in these 4 different times. And in the north edges of the earth, he sees 3 openings in the heavens, and from it come north winds, and which it says they blow cold, hail, frost, snow, dew, and rain. And one of these openings blows north winds on mankind for good, and then the other 2 blow forth north winds for violence and affliction on the earth, which I would agree that hail and snow can be a great violence and affliction to my personal soul at many times.
Yes, totally.
And in actual reality, like this isn't like, in poetic speak, in actual reality, northern winds are cold winds. So the winds that blow down from the north, that comes, from the context of the United States, it would come down from Canada. It's cold. It's blowing down northern winds. So this kind of relates to this. And this is mentioned even in like the book of Song of Solomon. It talks about north winds and south winds. Like north winds are like negative and south winds are warm. So they're positive. So from there, he goes to... it's interesting because chapter 33 and chapter 34 are almost exactly the same thing. He just like repeats it again with slightly different language.
Yeah.
He really wanted to emphasize these 3 openings in the north that are cold. He wants to get across. There is frost and snow.
They're super cold and I don't know what to do.
Which is funny. I never think of it like hailing in like Israel or the Middle East.
Do they have hail?
They must.
I thought it was just warm. I thought they were getting that south wind.
I don't know.
Does Israel have snow?
I don't know. I don't know if it actually snows, but it may be on mountaintops there. It snows in Hawaii, so it's got to.
Does it snow in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I could see that happening.
Yeah. So moving on to chapter 35, he then goes to the west and he sees 3 openings there. And he goes on down to the east and sees 3 openings there. And then to the south, sees 3 openings there. And from the south, he says, comes dew and rain and wind. And it's spoken of as like a more positive light. And then there's just one little addendum that in the east, in addition to the 3 big openings, there are smaller portals or openings.
Yeah.
And through them, he says, passes the stars of heaven that run their course from east to west on their set path. So this kind of goes back to, I think, like chapter 2 of the Book of Enoch, where it talks about the stars and the winds, and pretty much nature is going in its set course. And then these watchers, these angels in heaven, go against what their created purpose is and come to earth and, mate with women and create giants. So this is how the book of the Watchers ends, talking about, the winds keeping to their intended course. The stars go from west to east according to their intended course. And it's just a way of tying up, like, remember, because Enoch wrote this section of the book, if we're believing Enoch wrote it, to instruct a generation that is to come to not fall into wicked ways, pretty much, to be righteous. And he's kind of tying that back up. Like, remember, even like the stars and the winds go as God intended them. And we should too.
Yeah.
And then he ends with a little declaration. He said, as often as I saw what I saw, I bless always the Lord of glory, and I continue to bless him, for he has made great and glorious wonders. He has shown his greatness of all his works to the angels and to men, that they may praise his works and all his creation, that they might see the works of his hands and praise his great work and bless him forever.
Crazy.
Yeah.
He also kind of said that earlier in the chapter, didn't he?
There was
like,
many
"Praise the
different
Lord."
times where he would he's like, what is this tree? And the angel would tell him, he's like, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
What is this valley? It's to keep
Hallelujah.
the cursing souls until judgment day. He's like, bless
Praise
the Lord.
Lord.
So I think it's just a way of being like, wow, just
Yeah.
amazed at what God has created. Yeah.
It's a cool progression of the last 36 chapters, because it went from the discovery that these angels had done something wrong to telling these angels they had done something wrong to ending the book with kind of a warning or a telling of this is how the stars should compose themselves through these portals. And he's like, this is how it should be because we've seen it go wrong. So now remember how it went wrong, and this is how it should be.
Which, as we mentioned, that's a great point, because as we mentioned, I think last week, that in the ancient world, in many different religions, they viewed the stars and the planets, the sun and the moon, as spiritual beings.
Yes.
So even by Enoch saying, like, the stars of heaven go on their intended course, it's kind of hearkening back to, like, the angels, the watchers, you're supposed to go on your do as God's created you to be, unlike these who came to earth and disobeyed God.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Well, that has been the first section of the Book of Enoch. That was the Book of the Watchers, which, in my opinion, is the most fascinating.
I think it's probably the most close to me believing it should be part of the Bible.
Yes, I could see this being the close to being a true account.
Yes, absolutely. The rest of the Book of Enoch it's pretty much like every other word is like hit or miss. Like that could be, or that couldn't be part of the Bible, and I'm torn, and some parts are very clearly not part of the Bible.
Yes.
So I'm excited to get into that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So next week, we're going to move on to the next section of the Book of Enoch, and that is the Book of Parables. So we're going to do chapters 37 through 48. So the next 12.
Right on.
Yeah.